Well, hello. It has been a really long time since I have filmed a video like this. Cheers. The amount of times that I have thought about filming a video like this is a lot. Really, a lot. But, however, every time that I kind of was thinking about it, I just put it off and then ended up not doing it at all. I just realized I forgot to turn on my light. Actually, both of them. So let's do this. There's that guy. Here's this guy down here behind me. There, that should help everybody see me. It's a pretty bright video. I left the overhead lights on for this, which I don't normally do because for my reaction videos. But I thought for this I would go ahead and do it. This is a bit less of a like a vibey thing and more of a informational video, sort of serious, I guess. I guess it is serious, but... So, hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. As I said at the intro here, the beginning part, I have not done a video like this in quite a while. In fact, the last video that I did that was titled Cancer Update was actually about 1 year ago. I think it was a little more than over a year ago. I think it was in March, towards the second half of March, but I think it was around like March 15th or something. I looked a little while ago, but I don't remember the exact date. And if you are someone who is watching this video, first of all, thank you for being here. I do appreciate it. If you haven't seen any of my other videos before, I would recommend, like this, any of my other cancer videos, cancer-related videos, I would recommend going and watching Cancer Update Volume 1 and then Cancer Update basically Cancer Update 1 and Cancer Update 2 before watching this video, because those two videos really do a good job of explaining everything that was happening to me when it first started. And that was the most extreme part of this entire journey, up until now at least. That was the most extreme part of this journey. And I really am proud of those two videos, and I'm happy with how they turned out and everything. I haven't watched them, since I recorded them back in the day, back a year ago, and then edited them. But so this is part 3. So like I said, I recommend going and watching those first. If you are someone that's been following the channel here, and you have been watching any of my other videos throughout this last year, you will know that I just sort of routinely talk in all of my videos about kind of what's been happening with the cancer situation and everything, and what has been going on throughout the year. So if you are someone that's been here, or if you've even checked in a little bit, when we do Metallica videos, spread out quite a bit, our Megadeth video, our more recent Beatles videos, things like that. You probably know a little bit more you definitely know more of what's going on than the person who just finds these videos or watches my cancer thread or something after the fact. I don't even know. But thank you for being here, or thank you for being here for the first time, for either having been here or being here for the first time. I do appreciate it. So, yeah, like I said, a lot has happened over the last year. And again, now I've said it, I'll say it again. Like I said, I had planned to do a video like this several times throughout the year. I was going to film one in July, and then I kind of felt like, oh, well, I'll film it in August. And then August became September, and then September came through, and then October happened. And we had some big news in October. And then since then, it's kind of been like a stasis. I felt like I've been in a bit of a stasis, like an in-between sort of mode. And it's all been leading up to 2 days from now when I go into the hospital. So I'm not going to string this along like some sort of like a long process or anything. If this is your first video here, just to catch you up very quickly, in December of 2024, I got really sick. I'm sorry, 2023. I was sick from about June to December of 2023 with various different things. I have videos here on the channel throughout that entire time where I was talking about, what I was doing, how I was feeling, all those things, just doing reaction videos and sort of explaining why I had to have a handkerchief with me to wipe sweat, or why I had to have this nasal stuff, the Vicks Vapo inhaler, or I would cough a lot or sneeze or get bloody noses sometimes. And it turns out I started getting tested in December, and then on January 9th, 2024, I found out that I had cancer, that I had leukemia. And I was diagnosed with leukemia on the 9th, and then I was told, tomorrow you have to meet us in the city, in the hospital, plan for a long stay, or a week, at least a week's length stay, and we were going to start you on your treatment. And so that's what that first video is about. After I got out of the hospital after 11 days, there was a blizzard, it was all sorts of crazy stuff. And then I filmed another video about a month or so later, because I had been going through a lot of new experiences. And then over the course of the whole year, we were going through treatment. I say we instead of me because my mother has been with me almost this entire time. She goes with me to almost every appointment. We have gotten so mad at each other over the course of the year because we've been spending so much time together. Though, truth be told, I have spent a large portion of my life with my folks, whether living here or just coming back home over the weekends during college, and then also coming back for a lot of weekends when I lived in Omaha for 7 years and had a full-time job at Omaha at a recording studio. And then since I moved back home a few years ago, I've obviously been living here. I live on a small farm outside of the town of Prague, Nebraska, and which is about an hour and a half's drive from Omaha, maybe an hour and 20 minutes drive from Omaha. And I talk about driving a lot in those first two videos because we were still getting used to it at that point. Not that we ever did get used to it, but I'm not going to talk about the drive in this video, at least not too much, because I know I talked about that a lot. But anyway, we spent the entire year, I spent the entire year going through cancer treatment, chemotherapy, and all sorts of different things. There was steroids involved. There were lots of lumbar punctures. There were lots of bone marrow biopsies. There were, countless visits to the hospital. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pills taken, medications, liquid, pill form, all sorts of different things, shots, all sorts of different stuff. And at 3 different hospitals, basically, actually 4 different hospitals if you count Village Point in Omaha, the Village Point location. So spread out quite a lot. There have been lots of different things that have happened over the year and everything. But again, not to string anyone along or lead anything on. In October of last year, we were told that the cancer, we had pushed it down as far as it could go, to the point where we were basically done with my 10-month treatment. It took from January 10th through October, and I think it was the end of October, I think it was. Because I can remember being yes, it was the end of October, maybe very early part of November, when we found out that we had gotten a bone marrow biopsy, and the results came back that my cancer was increasing instead of staying where the level that it was, which was negligible, like 0. And so we were told that I was going to need a bone marrow transplant. And that was quite a shock. I'll explain more about all of this process, this specific meeting here in a little bit, but I want to let everybody know where I'm sitting at right now. Is we were told in October, at the very end of October, I need a bone marrow transplant, and we have been waiting until now. It is the end of March 2025, 5 months later or something. And I am about to go in 2 days for my bone marrow transplant. And I will explain more about that when I get to that. But I want to rewind a little bit. I wanted to let everybody know that, just so everybody knows. That's kind of what's coming up ahead. So I knew I wanted to film this video before I go into the hospital. And I was planning, I mentioned now several times that I was planning to film a video like this to kind of catch everybody up throughout the year. But what ended up happening was we fell into this routine and we just got comfortable with it. And even though there were things that happened throughout the year, cancer-wise, medication-wise, medically, I wouldn't say there were a ton of things. I mean, there were, every time you go into the hospital, something happens. You meet someone new, a new nurse, a new, someone, a new caretaker, something. And so there is always new things happening, and there are new experiences and different people to talk to and everything, new drugs to try and stuff like that. But for the most part, there wasn't anything too crazy. There were a few things that I'll go over, but we just fell into this routine, and it ended up being a routine. It ended up becoming our life, basically. And we tried to schedule things around it. We are really bad with scheduling, as I mentioned on the other videos, parts 1 and 2 of this. My family's not a very scheduling type of family. We're not very organized that way. And we still aren't, as a matter of fact, now, which is giving us a few headaches. But we fell into a routine, and I was going to film a video, like I said, around July, and kept getting pushed back. And then in October, I was going to film another one, and we found out the news, and so I've been kind of waiting until now. So when I did realize I was going to do this, and I knew I wanted to record this before I went to the hospital, I've been trying to think about things that happened throughout the year that would make sense to talk about in a video like this. In the last video that I recorded a year ago, I talked about my different medications, and I talked about driving, and I talked about going to different hospitals. And all that stuff made sense at the time. And now as I sit here doing this video, I honestly don't really know what to talk about. I am planning on doing, after this whole thing is over, which hopefully the transplant goes well, I have no more cancer left in me. I will have to deal with the ramifications of this transplant for years, but hopefully I don't have too many bad side effects. If there are side effects, hopefully they're acute side effects, which means they happen in the short term and then go away. And hopefully there's nothing that is long-lasting side effects, though it is possible for that to be the case. But after all this goes well, hopefully, I said probably will go well, after everything goes well and after this process is done, I should be okay. And at that point, I would like to make a video talking about my year with cancer, my entire thing, the whole process, tips and tricks for people, not tricks exactly, but like tips, things maybe to help people who are maybe going through a similar situation, things like that. But that's not what this video is for. This is an update. And I have been trying to think of different things to talk about, and it's been really hard because what happened was, like I said, we fell into a routine. We got comfortable going to the hospital basically at least twice a week, every week. And generally what that would entail is go into the hospital to get labs and maybe do some chemo at the beginning part of the week. And then at the ending part of the week, go to Fremont, which I'm pretty sure I was going to Fremont. There's a city that's about 30 minutes from here with a significantly smaller city with a hospital that I was allowed to go to do lab draws and to get my PICC dressing changed on my PICC line. I do still have this. Which here, let me just take this off. And there, I still do have my PICC line. It's still there. I've had it for over a year now. Oh, a year and a month and almost a year and 2 months. And still going strong. Both lines still work. And use them regularly. So we fell into this routine of going basically twice a week. Chemo at the beginning part of the week, second part of the week, going to Fremont on Thursday to do some labs. And so what I would do is I would get labs done twice a week on either Monday or Tuesday, generally Mondays. I would go in, get my PICC dressing changed, do labs. This is in Omaha at UNMC. Do labs and PICC dressing change, get some chemo, or actually there or at Bellevue Hospital. There's The hospital that I go to for all my treatment it has 3 locations. The main downtown location, which everyone calls main campus because that's where they have all the classrooms and everything. It's like an enormous hospital. And then there is the Bellevue location, which is also a very big hospital, but there's no, as far as I know, there's no schooling or anything attached to it. And then there is the Village Point location as well, all in Omaha, Nebraska. And throughout the year, we went to all of those. And in my previous videos, I talked about going to the main campus, the Buffett Cancer Center, and also going to the Bellevue Center. Well, last year we got, over the course of the year, I think 3 or 4 times we went to the Village Point location. And I have to say, I really enjoyed that location. It was very nice, but I don't have too much to say about that. But I also was going to Fremont for labs. And so we fell into this routine. I know this is very scatterbrained feeling, and I've tried to prep for this mentally, but it's kind of hard, like I said. I don't know exactly what I'm going to talk about, but I'll try to be as succinct as possible. So we fell into a routine, and then what ended up happening was you try to live your life as normally as possible while always having the commitment of going to the hospital multiple times a week. And for us, since the hospital is about an hour and a half away, that basically means you can't do very much else in that day. If it's a 3-hour drive there and back, and if you rarely ever spend less than an hour at the hospital. And in fact, the way we treated it all year long was we wanted to be at the hospital for as long as possible to make the 3-hour drive, the hour and a half there, hour and a half back, worth going there for, right? Now, if we were just going to Fremont for labs on a Thursday, or if I would go there, if I had nothing at the beginning part of the week, or if I had like a week off from going to Omaha, we would then go to Fremont on Monday morning to the clinic side, the infusion sort of clinic side, outpatient clinic is what they call it. And I would go into my own room, and I would do they would do labs, and they would change my pick dressing, which is just all this stuff around the outside. And I think I explained about that in another video. But I would do that on the Monday, on my weeks off. And then on Thursday, we would go in and just do labs. And that would go to a different part of the hospital. And I would go through, and believe I talked about this again in another video, and just have someone draw labs really quick. And someone from the outpatient clinic had to come there and do it because I had the pick dressing, or the pick line. And so that was our week off, so that was just the way we thought of it. I have to go into the hospital probably twice a week, sometimes more, very rarely ever less than that, because we always had to have my pick dressing changed on Monday, and they always did labs at the same time, and then they always wanted labs drawn on Thursday of the week as well. And the reason they wanted Thursday was so that if they drew my labs and I was low and I needed something like platelets or blood or a product like that, then they could schedule a time for me to have those on Friday, either in Fremont or in Omaha. And so that's what the year became. Pick dressing change and labs on Monday, and then on Thursday, labs. And then a lot of weeks, I would say a majority of the weeks, we would also go to Omaha. We would go to Omaha for the Monday part of that, and then we would also do chemo. And sometimes the chemo would also be on Tuesday, sometimes it'd be on Wednesday, sometimes it'd be on Thursday. Rarely, but a few times throughout the year, and I talked about this in the previous videos, we would have a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday schedule of chemo every day that week. And so, like I said, you just kind of start to live your life around the hospital visits. When you know you have to go to a hospital a certain day of the week, we would get our schedules, our calendars, and my case manager would print them off. I would see her almost every week, at least every couple of weeks, and she would give me that sort of month, the next several weeks breakdown in a physical piece of paper form, and that was what we would go off of. And if we knew we were going into the hospital that day, we wouldn't really plan to do much else. If I had to edit a podcast for that week or something, I have to edit a podcast every week. That was something that's changed at the beginning of last year as well. One of the podcasts I've been working for 13 years, Alohomora, I mentioned them in previous podcast, one of the Harry Potter podcasts I work on, they decided that they were going to end the podcast in 2025. 2026, so next April. And so we were going to go really hard for 2 years every week to end on episode 500. And so that really fundamentally changed the way that I was working. I was basically at that point editing an episode. You know what? It doesn't matter. basically I have a podcast episode to edit every week. And so I'd work on that the beginning part of the week when I could, just kind of schedule time to work on that around going to the hospital. And that was how we did everything. Like I said, my mother went with me to the hospital almost every single time. We have spent a lot of time together in the car, listening to music, driving, going to all these different restaurants. We have lots of different places we've tried. I talked about that in the previous videos as well. That was something we always talked about with a lot of the nurses. And that kind of continued throughout the year when we would get new people. That's a way to start a conversation really nicely with a new nurse or someone new that's helping you. If they're going to be in the room for a while, no one knows what to talk about, ask them where some of their favorite places to eat are. Always, the way we always start is, are you from Omaha? And then you get to talk about the person and the things that they like and the things that they do. And it becomes just, it's easier to bond with people kind of that way. And that's the way we always treated it. I talked about in previous videos. We always try to treat everybody very nice, very fairly, and try to be as happy as possible the entire time, because the people that are there are the people that are there trying to help you, and it doesn't do any good to get mad at them. But I've talked about nurses a lot in the past, so I'm not going to do that too much here. And so we were in this routine. We were going through. Occasionally, I would get a new medication, and occasionally things would happen. Like I know last May, we had a really bad flood here in Nebraska, and especially in our area. And it was some glaciers and everything, or not glaciers, glaciers. Like ice on the rivers was melting and everything. And then there was quite a big rainstorm one day. It flooded out some of our crops. And we had probably the worst flooding I had seen since the 2019, like devastating disaster floods that happened in Nebraska, in the Midwest there. But it was really bad. And that was kind of a whole thing. The night that it was raining, I went outside multiple times and I couldn't get my pick dressing wet, so I would put on layers of clothes and then a raincoat over the top of it with a hood, and I would have to go out and dig this trench, and I did it multiple times throughout the night. And then we woke up in the morning, electricity was off, and we had flooding everywhere. Thankfully, no water in the basement, but we did, like I said, have damage to the crops. Everybody had damage to crops. Everything from all the corn stalks from every field were there still. You can go out there and find them today. Like there's effects now, a year later, from that flood that you can still see. It changed the direction of some of the creeks and everything around here. And so that was a crazy thing that happened. But again, that's just something that kind of fits in between all of the going to the hospital. I believe when I last filmed, I still had a really puffy face from the... Oh, that's something good to talk about. So my body changed a lot over the course of the year. You can probably see in this video now that I have gained all of my weight back. The very first video I filmed, I was very skinny, just got back from the hospital, and then I was taking my my steroids for quite a long time at the beginning of the year last year, and they gave me a very puffy face. And I was very happy when I took the last pill, and then it still took several weeks after that for all of the puffiness to leave my face. And if I remember correctly, in the Cancer Update Volume 2, my face was like at its peak, giant fattest, and it's absolutely crazy. So I was really happy when that went down. And then for about the next large chunk of the year, I was as skinny as I have been for a long time. And I talked in previous videos about how I could fit into different shirts, different clothes, and things like that. And I found myself over the summer not being as hot as I had been throughout my life. I'm a very hot person. I just am pretty hot-blooded, I guess you would say. Like, I'm not hot like temper-wise, but I'm just a hot person all the time. And I found that the sun and the heat didn't bother me as much, probably because I had significantly less body fat and, insulation or whatever. And so as I go back and I look at pictures of everything that happened last year, I'm the person that always takes photos, so it's pretty rare that someone takes photos of me. But there were, I was going through some... over the last couple of weeks, just going through things, trying to remember, because I knew I was going to film this video. And in all the pictures, I look so, it's weird. Like in some ways I look like my hair looks terrible throughout the entire year, and that reached a point about 3/4 through the year where I actually had to shave my head, but I'll get to that in a second. But when I still had enough hair to look decent, I think I looked actually pretty nice, having lost the 80 pounds or so that it was initially in December of 2023 into January of 2024. And so I didn't really gain much weight. I stayed around, we estimate that I was around 300 pounds, maybe a little less than that, maybe 290 or so, before I got cancer. And then I lost about 80 pounds or thereabouts. And I was hovering between 220 and 232, basically, for most of the year. And it was pretty nice. That was a really nice part of this whole thing. And I felt that I bought a lot. I couldn't fit into really any of my clothes, so I went out and bought, 4 or 5 new pairs of shorts, 3 or 4 pairs of pants, and then I bought lots of new, just like sports shorts, like basketball shorts and things like that. That's generally what I wear around the house most days. Once it got cold and stuff over the winter and everything. And then when we first got back, when it was still cold at the beginning of last year, I wore, I can wear like sweatpant type things. I don't wear sweatpants exactly, but lots of like pajama bottom type looking things and just like swishy pants, we call them, stuff like that. It's comfortable clothing. Throughout the year, the more comfortable I got going to the hospital, the more I realized you go there and you try to be as comfortable as possible. So I didn't really care too much about wearing nice clothes ever going to the hospital. And I'm not the type of person that really cares what I look like that much anyway, but I found I cared even less throughout the year. But, that was kind of an interesting part about it. And then when we got to October and I was told that we were going to go the route of the transplant, at that point we stopped doing all chemo, which we were supposed to stop doing chemo at that point because we had reached the end of my cycle, which basically in the first couple of videos, I believe I talked about different stages of my treatment, not the stages of cancer, stages of treatment. Stage 1 was while I was in the hospital and everything lasted maybe like another month. And then we go to stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. And as we were going through the different stages, we would do different routines of chemo. And certain stages were a little bit more intense than others. The third stage I feel like was maybe the easiest. This is just off the top of my head, and it all blurs together a lot in my head, and I could talk about that for hours about how the whole year really is just kind of like a blur of things. And if I didn't have pictures and stuff, I don't know if I'd even remember very much of it. But when I think back on most years in my life, it's kind of like that. Certain things stand out, certain things don't. But this is definitely the craziest year of my life for sure. And stage 3, if I remember correctly, was a longer stage, and that was a pretty easy stage, and it was the most sort of uniform. And then stage 4 was harder, and had a little. It was kind of the last stage before the sort of last part, and I was having some difficult times. And then when we were done with that, and we came in October. We stopped doing chemo, and then at that point I got put on a different medication, and since then I've gained all my weight back. I now weigh around 280 now, about 278 I think last time I went and got checked, which was just 2 days ago on Tuesday. So I have completely gained basically all of my weight back. I also gained basically all of my hair back that I had. This is basically what my hair looked like before I had cancer. I mean, I'm balding, but I always have been balding since I was, in high school. And so that's nice to know that my hair will come back the way it was. No miracle happened, and I don't have a full head of hair. I did think about wearing a wig for this video, but that would be silly. But I have a lot of videos on the channel where I was wearing a wig throughout the year, just acting like a goofball. All of our Halloween videos are always full of that kind of stuff. But so I guess when I was trying to think about different things throughout the year, we had the flood in May, and again, that didn't really affect the cancer that much. we had in 4th of July was interesting because the week of 4th of July, for 4th of July, my family usually celebrates sort of different ways. We can go to my sisters. We usually go to my uncle's. I like that part the most. But sometimes my uncle's is the same day as my sister's. And so my folks in years past have gone up to visit my sister, whereas I've gone to my uncle's, then gone to visit my sister after that, which is quite a deal when I did that a couple years ago. But what happened this last year was it happened to work out that the little town I'm from, Prague, didn't have any special like 4th of July celebration. So we were just going to be going to either my uncle's or my sister's, and they weren't happening on the same day, so we could go to both. And so we went to my uncle's, and we did that. I believe it was the week of 4th of July itself. I'm not exactly sure the dates. Obviously 4th of July, but I'm not sure when it was being celebrated. I don't remember what day of the week 4th of July was on. But I know when we went to my uncle's that week in particular, I had got my pick dressing changed in Fremont, and one of the nurses there did it. And generally, when they change the pick dressing in Omaha, they're a lot more strict. At UNMC, they make you wear a mask. And so when you're wearing a mask, you can talk to the nurse, you can, whatever, interact with them. But in Fremont, they don't necessarily they don't necessarily make you wear a mask. Sometimes they do, and it depends on the nurse. But in this particular case, I wasn't made to wear a mask, and so they just ask you if you could please look the other way while they're doing it. It's not super strict or anything like that, but I trust the nurses implicitly, completely. And she did the whole process, and I was joking around like I always do. And when she was done, I looked down, and she had these lines running down here. And it was the first time that someone had... my lines usually are about like at this angle here, maybe, so that I can still close my arm, and they're on this side rather than going down here underneath. Because if they're down here underneath and you try to put your arm on something, they're right there. It's really annoying. And this particular time for 4th of July, and I remember it specifically because I was starting to feel better around that time. Like, it wasn't that I was feeling terrible before that, but I really I was starting to feel good. I could go outside, I could do work, which I had done little bits of throughout, but I was getting comfortable with the routine. I was feeling a little bit more comfortable with myself and everything that was going on. We've been doing it long enough that it was just a routine at that point. It wasn't still new and scary or anything like that. And I was excited to go for 4th of July, to do something we generally do, have some normalcy, basically related to a holiday, something we generally do every year. And she put it right here, and it was right in the crook of my arm. And it really kind of bothered me the entire dang time. And I remember that being quite a bummer. But I managed to make it work. I think I just angled them down a little bit, and then if I was sitting, I could maybe try to angle them up, but I try not to have them bent too much. Right now they are facing this way, and they're not being bent at all down here. The lines are still straight, and I try to do that as much as possible, but they are completely floppy. They could even go down here if I needed them to, but I just try to always keep them straight. And in that particular case, the way the nurse had done it, they were right here in the crook of my arm, and it was super annoying, especially for being outside. And when your arm's like this, it sweats a little bit, because here in Nebraska, 4th of July is always swelteringly hot. And it's generally incredibly humid as well. Lots of bugs out and things. But we still had a great 4th of July. And like I said, I was starting to feel pretty good. Then we got to August, which was, I think, in my opinion, one of the worst months of the year. At some point during August, I think it might have been towards the end of August, maybe even into September, I was given a new medication. And I remember specifically because when that would happen, I would be told beforehand, generally a little bit like, okay, we're going to give you something new. And if it was a chemo or something like that, like a more intense type of drug or something, generally you have to have someone come in and they say, okay, like you meet with the pharmacist person. They come in and they say, here's this new thing. They give you a couple sheets of paper that basically tell you all the ways this new thing can kill you. And I'm not exaggerating. That's literally what it is. Like, okay, this can paralyze you, do this, cause this, You could die, blah, blah, whatever. Here are the common side effects. It can give you a rash. It can give you a headache. You can have fever. If you have a reaction to it right away, it can do this, blah, blah, blah. And we were given a new medication, and we weren't given any information about it or anything like that. Just told, okay, here's this new thing and take it. And the week we went in to get it, the week we were supposed to get it, we went in to do I believe it was a lumbar puncture or a bone marrow biopsy. So we were at the Bellevue Hospital location, the one with all the plants, and my favorite place to go with all the greatest people there. And there was a new nurse, a nurse that was new at the time. And I asked her a question, and I don't even remember what it was, but I asked her a question because something didn't seem normal with the way we were doing things. I think it was that week we had multiple things scheduled. It was like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday thing. And this was a Monday, and I asked a question about what was supposed to be happening Tuesday, saying, I don't think we do that. Oh, that's what it was. We were going to be getting some medication on Monday and Thursday of that week. And we had never done it that way before. I'd only ever gotten it once, and then multiple weeks go by and you get it again. But in that particular case, it was a chemo, I believe, and we were going to do it on Monday and Thursday, and I thought something was screwed up. And so I just questioned it, and she didn't know. And then it caused a bit of a kerfuffle because she ended up calling my case manager. My case manager had the printout of my schedule and my routine there, and she looked at it, and it was only supposed to be happening once. But my doctor said it was supposed to happen twice that week, and it ended up turning out that my case manager had an older schedule or something like that, or a not fully updated version of my routine, my schedule. And my doctor was right, and this nurse didn't really know that kind of stuff, and so, like I said, she was new. What ended up happening was it caused a kerfuffle. We had some stuff canceled for that day. So we came back the next day, and we did what was canceled the day before, but we still had the thing scheduled on Thursday, and we had the same nurse again the next day, like on the Tuesday. So we came in Monday, kerfuffle happened, came in Tuesday, everything went fine. But what ended up happening on that day was the day we were supposed to be told what this new medication was, no one told us what it was. I just knew there was some medication waiting for me at the pharmacy. And so we went and picked it up, and I asked, am I supposed to start taking this? And they said, no, not yet. And then later in the week, they said, okay, now you can start taking it. And what it was dexamethasone, which maybe if you watching this video, if you're familiar with how this stuff works, if it's an ethazone or a zone type thing, it's probably a steroid. Well, I didn't know that at the time. All this stuff happened. We never got told what it was, and I started taking it, and I had to take it for a week. And I had to take, I think it was 2 pills in the morning, 2 pills at night, every day for 1 week. And it started off just fine. I started on the Monday that I was supposed to start taking it. I took it by Monday just fine, Tuesday just fine. By Wednesday, I was like, whoa, something is off. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was feeling somewhat aggressive, like just more. I'm not an aggressive person. I can get angry pretty quickly, but immediately it goes away. And I'm not generally a very emotional person, outwardly at least. And I'm pretty good at, being pretty chill. And I just was snapping at everything and being really emotional and stuff. And we didn't have a doctor's appointment that week until I think, or maybe not even, or we just had one on Monday. And then we went in on Thursday. That was one of the weeks we had off. So we went into Fremont both times, which were just there for like a half hour each time. And don't really talk to them too much about what's going on. And I had probably told them like, oh, this medicine's weird. It's making me weird, all this stuff. And it wasn't until the following week when we went back to Omaha, talked to the doctor, and they said, oh man, we wish we would have known that was affecting you. Like basically by the time I realized it was affecting me, I was kind of almost done with it. And we weren't seeing anyone till the next week. And so it really, the dexamethasone really messed me up badly. I remember specifically I was driving somewhere and I just completely blacked out and didn't remember ever driving home. Like I had no recollection of driving home. Now I wasn't driving from very far away or anything like that. And it wasn't, a big deal. I was fine. Probably in the moment I was totally fine, but I don't recall driving home at all. And I just was angry at everything, and it just felt really off. And it just was terrible. And I really hope I don't have to go through another bout of that medication. They give me a little bit of it when they do certain things, because steroids are pretty common throughout the whole process, but generally they give you a little bit before they give you something new to just kind of help your body like get ready to here comes something new. And that was a really bad week, and it was part of a really bad month. Like I said, August was not very good. And it's so funny because I say that and I sit here and I don't know if you can tell watching the video, but I'm just constantly like searching for what to say. And that's because it's hard to remember. And maybe part of it is the cancer. I don't know. Maybe a lot of it's probably the medication, but like, I don't know. I remember August being not very fun, not a very good month. And I honestly can't even sit here and tell you why, other than the thing with the medication. I think it did affect me for maybe a week or two after that. So if I took that at the beginning of August, then it would have affected me the whole time, almost the entire month. And then I remember September not really being that great either. And I think that was at the point when we were in the penultimate stage 4 of the treatment. And everything was kind of winding down. You could see the light at the end of the tunnel at the end of October. And so now I'll get to the part that I think is the most important thing to tell you. So we had an appointment scheduled at the end of October, to go in and basically start stage 5. That's what was scheduled. Stage 5 is what they call the maintenance stage, which lasts for like 2 years or something, where basically I would still get checked for blood maybe twice a week for a month. Then you slowly taper off, get checked once a week for, a couple months, then maybe get checked every 2 weeks, maybe once a month for a couple months. I would take little doses of chemo things here and there, spread out quite far, until eventually, as my doctor said, they just stop calling to make sure I'm still alive, right? That's what he said. And so we had that appointment scheduled, and we came in to the hospital for that appointment. And one thing that was weird was my case manager wasn't there. Generally, she was there a lot of the time when we would meet with the doctors. And I would try to meet with the doctor. I think I was supposed to have a meeting with them every 2 weeks throughout the whole year, to at least talk to someone from their department. And obviously every week we were seeing different medical people and everything, but a lot of the times it's just you're seeing someone in the infusion center, you're seeing a nurse as they're doing the pick dressing change and stuff, or you're just getting labs done. So you're seeing different people who are all sort of in charge of different things, but I was supposed to see either a doctor or someone that worked with my doctor's team at least once every 2 weeks. So we had been seeing my case manager a lot. We had seen her. She would come when we were doing chemos or things like that. Anytime we were at main campus, basically, the big hospital in downtown Omaha, anytime we were there, we would probably see her, and she would give us a new schedule. We would, talk. We got really close with her. Her name was Melanie, and she's absolutely amazing. I'm pretty sure I talked about her in the first 2 videos of this. And we got pretty close with her. I learned she loved Mr. Pibb, which is kind of a strange thing. And her mom was anyway, it doesn't matter. But we got pretty close with her. And we got to see my doctor several times a bunch of times throughout the year. However, most of the time when we would go in to see either my doctor or someone from his team, we would see someone else. We wouldn't see my actual doctor. And there was a lady named Catherine. Dr. Catherine is what we always called her, but she was another doctor. And I'm not sure exactly, another oncology doctor, I believe. I'm not sure if she was the same exact type of doctor as my like my physician, my head doctor. But I saw Dr. Catherine a lot throughout the year, and she helped me a lot. I would actually say I think of her almost more as my doctor, at least for big chunks of the year. I thought of her more as my doctor than my actual doctor. And I remember a couple times, especially in August, I was having a really hard time, and we went in, and she and my case manager were both there, and I was just being emotional and feeling weird and stuff. And they kind of talked me out of being emotional in a really nice and great way. And I won't go over all the details and everything. And it wasn't like crazy or anything. I mean, it wasn't, it wasn't that big of a deal, but to me it was. And I can still remember. That's something I do remember very clearly. And they told me something that meant a lot to me. And that was a special that was just a nice thing, again, not a very big deal. And I'm not trying to keep anything like a secret or anything like that. It was just more of a personal thing. And that was really nice. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, I got to know people throughout the year, a lot of people, a lot of great nurses, a lot of great doctors. My case manager was wonderful. So we came in for the appointment at the end of October, and my case manager wasn't there. And it was just my doctor. And my doctor has a very, he's not very tactful when it comes to certain things. And I had experiences with him throughout the entire year like that, where he would all of a sudden just be like, oh, here's this. And we would be like, what? How, really? You don't want to like ease into that conversation a little bit? But that's just how he is as a person, which is totally fine. He is great. But he's like, we came into the appointment expecting the celebration of entering stage 5. We had done a bone marrow biopsy before that. We did one in July, and then we did one in August, about a month later. And that was at the very end of I believe a big part of the treatment ended at the very end of July. Or maybe, in July. No, that's what it was. We did one in July, and then we did one again in September. And the results came back. And when we came in for this visit where we were all happy and celebrating, expecting a celebration, and he said, well, look at these numbers. See this number? This number is higher. This is the amount of cancer you have in you. Now, this is the amount of cancer you had in you in July. Well, the number that's there now is higher, right? So that means you have more cancer in you now than you did before, which means your cancer is coming back. And we're just sitting there like, what? And he said, at this point, means your cancer is coming back. We will not be entering stage 5. We'll be entering, tomorrow, you will be hooked up to this medication called Blindo, which is going to be attached to you 24/7 at all times for 4 weeks on, 2 weeks off, 4 weeks on, in a cycle that will go until we can find you a donor and do a bone marrow transplant. And at that point, my mom kind of had a panic attack and freaked out. And I try to approach all of this from just like, okay, we do what they say. We do what they say. We do what they say. And so I wasn't really freaking out that much at all. But she was freaking out quite a bit. And so she had to go walk around and leave for a second, come back, all this stuff. And at that point, he was explaining, okay, we've done what we've done throughout this entire year to basically take your cancer, knock it down so there's as little cancer in your body as possible. Ideally, we would have knocked it down to the point where it's gone and it doesn't come back. But it's coming back now. And he was explaining, they have this technology there, which it is a fantastic hospital, but they have this technology there to see like basically deeper into your cells and everything than most places can. And in July, it said that it was negligible amount of cancer cells left. It was something that was undetectable by any standard. But then it was the absolute minimum amount that was detected in September. And September's one. When we went in October, he was talking about the test we did at the end of September. And so he was basically saying it's coming back. So we are changing tact. Your old case manager, who you've grown close to, though he didn't probably know that, she's gone. You're going to get new case managers now. And you're going to have two, and I'll explain that in a second. You're going to have two, and you're now entering transplant stage. Everything is going to be different. You're going completely off of chemotherapy. We're now going to do immunotherapy. And that's the Blindo. And so that was on, I believe, a Monday that we came in for that, or Tuesday we came in for that appointment. And then the following day, on Wednesday, I had to come back into the hospital. I had to bring clothing and stuff, and I had to get admitted to the hospital to stay for a minimum of 48 hours, more likely than not, 72 hours. And I got hooked up to a medication called Blindo, which is an immunotherapy medication that has tons of side effects and things it can, but they give it to you very slowly. And then what you do is you stay in the hospital overnight for a minimum of 48 hours. And after that point, if you're doing fine, you're not very sick, you're not showing any symptoms like side effects or anything, then a lady came. This is all what happened. We went in, we stayed there. A lady came in at the end of my stay and sort of taught us everything to do. And we were given this medication in a bag. Like I was given this bag, this like monitor and stuff. I filmed a whole separate video because when I still had it, to insert into this exact video to show and explain the process of it, which I'll get to in a second. But we had to take classes, and this lady taught me how to use it, and then basically I was hooked up to it, and then we had to leave the hospital, and I had to change it every day. I had to get medication delivered, all this stuff, and that was basically what I did from the very end from basically November all the way through till now, basically. And it was very weird and very shocking because, as I've already mentioned, we entered this routine of going into the hospital roughly twice a week the entire year. And then the day that this happened, and he said, you're going to do transplant now. You're going to be hooked up to the Blindo. The cycles of Blindo are 4 weeks on, 2 weeks off. 4 weeks on, 2 weeks off. And so we got hooked up, brought it home, very weird, took a while to get used to it, but over time, as everything, I did get used to it. And after the first cycle, it was going to end. The date they were going to hook me back up, so I did 4 weeks on, then I did 2 weeks off, and the day they were going to hook me up was Christmas Eve. And I told him, I said, are you guys sure that you want to hook me up on Christmas Eve and have me be in the hospital on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and the day after Christmas Day? And they were like, oh, that's a good point. We'll just give you an extra week. So what I did was the first cycle, 4 weeks on, 3 weeks off. And then I was hooked up on New Year's Eve. My mother and I spent New Year's in the hospital, looking out the window, seeing all the fireworks and everything. Sorry for all the coughing. Spent New Year's Eve looking at all the fireworks and everything. Got hooked back up to the Blindo, took it home, went through another cycle, then went through 2 weeks off, got hooked up again, went through another cycle, and then after the third cycle, got it off, and then that's kind of where we are now, where I'm going to be at the end of the third week, actually. So we went 2 weeks without it, and then a third week without it, and then starting at the end of this week, in a couple days, I go in to start the transplant process. And so the thing that was jarring about it, the first time we went into the hospital and got the Blindo, they gave it to us and we left. And then that was pretty much it. I did not hear from my case managers. I did not hear from my doctor. I did not hear from anyone. I went from seeing everybody, and there were, I will say, towards the end, a little bit more in like September and maybe part of August, Maybe that's why August was weird. I feel like we were given some things, and then it was like, okay, you don't need to come in now for like maybe a stretch of 2 weeks. So we were kind of getting longer stretches of period, less stretches of time where we weren't going in. But what ended up happening was we got the Blindo, and then we weren't talking to anybody anymore. And so, okay, let's see. I feel all jumbled because there's a lot of stuff now that I can talk about because I remember this because I just went through it. I got new case managers, and they are nice people. I think I made a terrible first impression on them because they came in, and I met with one of them the day that I found out about the Blindo and the transplant, or maybe it was the next day. It was the following day when I was being admitted to receive the Blindo for the first time. And I spent like a half hour, the first time I ever met them, complaining about driving to Omaha because I wanted them to know that I wanted them to know that scheduling an appointment for me shouldn't just be a flippant thing because we cannot just pick up and drive there. We have to drive through miles of country, and it's not an easy drive, and, we can't just do it in 10 minutes. And I went overboard, I think, and I just was probably feeling emotional after having been told that instead of the route we were going to go, the happy, nice route, we're going a much more difficult route. And I complained to him, and I think that started us off on the wrong foot. And so that was kind of rough, going from having Melanie, my wonderful case manager, who I now think of as the Michael Jordan of my entire team, the best person that I will probably encounter throughout this entire experience, no matter who else I meet. And then to go from her to this new team of ladies. I believe the reason I was given 2 was because there is a lady who'd been there for a while and had done this for quite a while, who is sort of trying to, not necessarily, I don't know if she's aiming to retire or she just wanted a significantly easier workload. And so she was taking significantly less time. And then there was a lady there who was sort of a newer lady who I think has still been doing it for years, but a newer lady who was stepping into that role or had been there for a year or 2 maybe. And so I was given the new lady and the lady that's sort of kind of on her way out, I guess, is from what I understand. And having 2 people was very, I feel personally, disorganized. I don't feel like they talk to each other that much. I could tell one thing to one of them, and the other person would not know, like the following week or whatever. I felt like it was much harder to schedule things. Much, much harder to schedule things. And we were scheduling things less frequently. So to me, I would think that it should be easier to schedule things because you are scheduling them less frequently. But, I don't know. I don't know how all that stuff works. But all of a sudden it seemed like, and maybe it was just because I gotten used to the way everything was done before, and switching things up just a little bit on me seemed like or felt like it made it more difficult. But to me, it really felt like we went from being in a really great place to being in a much more difficult place. And I think what may have happened is because I complained so much about the driving, they changed. I was supposed to come in and talk to, just like I had all year, every 2 weeks, meet with one of the doctors or someone on my doctor's team. That was supposed to happen with the Blindo too, but it was supposed to be weekly. And so what they ended up doing was saying, hey, as long as you're going through the Blindo fine, you don't have any side effects, it doesn't seem to be affecting you too bad, let's just do telehealth meetings, which is basically doing a Skype meeting or like a Zoom meeting, or it's just a meeting online with a person from our team. And so I would do that a majority of the weeks from now till back in October. So once October started, once November started, once the Blindo started, we switched to telehealth meetings, which I know, with all my complaining, seems like it would be a good thing. But I think what happened the first time around, being in physical contact, like with my case manager so much at the beginning of the year, helped me establish a really nice rapport with her, and we got to meet her and see her almost weekly for a majority of the year. But when we switched to telehealth, I only have met my case manager like a couple times, and I would talk to him on the phone or message them, and I felt a bit of a disconnect. And I think that it's all my fault because I complained too much about driving, and then they did the telehealth. What we should have done was telehealth every other week, and we come in to actually have an appointment every other week. And I would have loved it if one of my case managers was there every time. But what ended up happening was when we would come in for something, my case manager, neither of them would actually be there. And maybe it was because they didn't need to. Again, I believe that it's a whole different thing. So it's very hard for me to say that I should have expected it to be the same or anything like that. And I'm not saying that. However, to me, it started to feel a lot more difficult to get things scheduled, to get things done. I feel like I went for 10 months getting medications almost weekly. And in all that time, I never once had to fill my own prescription or call a pharmacy or make any appointment anywhere, including at Fremont. And I think what I realize now, looking back on it, my case manager was just literally so wonderful. She did so many things for me that were maybe not necessarily required of her in her job description. She went above and beyond the call of duty to make my life easier, and I cannot thank her enough for that. But then that part of it seemed to have stopped once we got new case managers. And it was up to me, and I'm not saying this is wrong. It was up to me all of a sudden to start scheduling things and to manage my prescriptions. And it became much more difficult doing those things, which those things are not the kind of the thing that I'm very good at. And so it started to seem to me like things were more difficult to get done. And I think probably a lot of that was on me because it was up to me to do those things. So again, that is not a problem with my case managers or anything like that. And I don't want it to seem like I'm sitting here complaining about them. But that, to me, was probably one of the biggest things that did change. And in my opinion, it did seem like it changed negatively. Now, I will say, since the beginning of the year, I've gotten to know one of the case managers a lot better. And I do feel like her and I understand each other a lot better now. And I have, a couple weeks ago when we were getting ready we were trying to get ready to go into the hospital doesn't matter. I kind of had a bit of a emotional breakdown on her, and I felt really bad after the fact, and I apologized, and she totally understood, I think, what was happening. And just that incident alone, I feel, made us maybe a little bit closer. But it was totally the stupidest, dumbest thing, and it was all my fault, and I should not have been, upset with her for any reason. But, I do feel like I am growing closer to them. However, after this 100-day process of the transplant, I will be getting a new case manager once we're released from the hospital. That is the sort of post-transplant case manager. So that's okay. Sorry, that's that whole part of everything. So the case manager thing. While we're still talking about this transplant, I want to go into a few details about that. What this transplant is going to entail, let me backtrack a little bit. And then I'll end the video with what this transplant actually entails. So, one of the things that did happen to me throughout the year, I think throughout the year, maybe 3 or 4 times, something happened and I had to go back to the hospital for an unplanned visit, get admitted to the hospital, and stay for several days. Twice it was to check for infection, and because I was sick, and once was for a medication, I think. So that was a planned one, I believe. But maybe two or three. Okay. I specifically remember two incidents. One, my mom and I on a Monday were going to Omaha to the hospital for a routine thing. We went to the infusion center to get some medication. I forget what it was. Oh no, I don't even think we were doing that. We were going to, it's hard to remember. We were going for something. And I was driving. Generally, I try to drive on the way there, and then my mom drives home. If I'm feeling great, I'll drive. If I'm not feeling the best, she'll drive both ways. And sometimes we flip it, do whatever. Sometimes I'll drive around Omaha and she'll just drive home and there or whatever, depending on where we're going to. But we were going to the main campus this day, and I drove, and I was driving it, and we were about halfway there, and I just started to not feel very good. And I was kind of getting chills. And so we got to the hospital, and we were walking into the hospital, which I'm pretty sure I've mentioned in other videos. It is a long walk, especially for my mother, who is 67, I think, right now. She has to, we walk so far. And that's another thing I could say. That's such a silly thing, but I think starting in like May or so of last year, maybe it was even in April, the big, I think five story parking lot that we park at the main hospital in downtown Omaha, they started to do construction on it. So we had to drive a whole different way for like 6-7 months to go into the other side of the parking lot from the other side. And there were a lot fewer places to park. So what we ended up doing was getting very comfortable, going to the very top and parking on the very top, walking into the building on the 3rd floor. So I guess it's only 3 stories, huh? Sure seems like there's more floors than that. But going all the way up, walking in on the 3rd floor, taking the elevator down, hoping to goodness that someone is walking through a side door that we can get into the other building. If not, having to walk all the way around a Starbucks that's inside the hospital, which, again, it sounds silly complaining about these things, but if you have to walk through hospitals a lot and you have to walk, a mile to where you're going, that is a lot, especially for people like me and my mom who don't walk around that much, But anyway, we have to walk around the Starbucks, then go all the way through the building, down an escalator. Then we're actually in the correct building, which these buildings are all connected. Then we're actually in the Buffett Cancer Center, then walk all the way across, get in another elevator, go up to whichever floor. So while we were in that process, this particular day, I was just starting to feel really sick. And at one point I remember it kind of almost, I've never passed out my whole life. Even still now with all this, I've never passed out. But I think I've gotten close a few times where, the light seems to kind of start to come in on you and everything's getting dark. And I've always managed, that's happened to maybe once or twice before ever. And I managed to push it aside. And in this case, it kind of started to happen a little bit when we were going down the escalator and stuff, made it all the way just fine. And I remember going to the infusion center on the 2nd floor, and I was just really cold, and I was shivering, and I kept getting these like waves of shivers that would start at the very tip of my head, and it would go all the way down, and I could feel it go all the way down my whole body, down to my toes. And the lady was like, "Oof, you probably have a fever." And so they checked me, and I did have a fever, but it was right on the cusp of like what they were like being weary of. And so they checked my temperature, and I was just over it. And so at that point, they were talking about it being what they call a neutropenic fever, which can happen for any number of reasons. It can happen out of the blue, nowhere. And because that happened, we had to stay there for, I think it was 30 minutes, and then they tested me again. And if they would have tested me again and I had a fever, I would have had to have been admitted to the hospital that day. And we were hoping that my fever wasn't going to still be there and we wouldn't need it. But they checked me and my fever was still like 1 point above what it was supposed to be or something, point something above. So we had to get admitted to the hospital. And that was such a bummer. This was the first time that this had happened throughout the year. And so we went up to the 7th floor, and got a room that was similar to the one we stayed in originally, and we had to stay there for 3 days, because what they do at that point is they have to check you to make sure you have maybe it was only, I think it was 3 days. Make sure you don't have an infection, basically. And what they have to do with that is they have to check your cultures, they call it. And so they have to draw blood from your body from 2 different places. So they draw it from a PICC line, and then they have to enter, they have to go and find a vein in another part of your body. It's not from the PICC line. And then they have to test the blood for cultures. And that process takes, I think, 2 days. So you get admitted, they take the blood samples, and then you have to wait like 2 days, and you can go home that 3rd day. And so that was a real big bummer that happened. But we were like, okay, whatever. We didn't have any clothes. We didn't have anything. And the whole funny thing about all this stuff is, like, when stuff like that happens, even though I can be in the hospital and my mom can just get in the car and drive home, and anybody that's watching this that's a mother, I'm sure you can probably relate. Anybody that's watching this and you have an overbearing mother, I'm sure you can relate too. I kept telling her, like, get out of here, just go home, whatever. She would not do that. So she'd stay with me every time. I have not spent a night in the hospital yet, as a matter of fact, without her being there. So this next stage is going to be quite different for me, but I think it'll be totally fine. I think it'll be good for us to spend a little bit of time apart before we have to spend a lot of time together. So that was one of the instances where I had to go back to the hospital. But at some point, and I can't remember when this was exactly, my sister was visiting with my nephew and my niece, and I had been sick with something, and I can't remember exactly what, cold or something, I think, and something happened with my nose. I was thinking that I had some kind of an infection, but it turned out that I didn't, because we went through the same process of them checking me for infection, and I didn't have infection. But something was happening with my nose, and it was I think it was during October. Maybe this was in September or the beginning part of October. But I have bad hay fever at certain times of the year as well. Generally, that's during harvest, which I don't think would have been at this point because I didn't have the Blindo. But something ended up happening, and I woke up, and my sister was visiting with my nephew and my niece. And when those days are here, and we get to spend time with my sister, with Sarah and Chloe and Hunter, nothing else matters, right? Nothing else matters. We just hang out and have a good time while they're here. We try to do fun stuff, just around, whatever, do stuff outside, maybe go to town, do something, not a big deal, just hang out, chill, whatever. However, I woke up and I just did not feel good. My throat hurt so bad. And my nose had been leaking, I think, a little bit at that point while I was sleeping. I was having a little trouble sleeping, which, by the way, for the whole year, I've been sleeping really great. If you watch those first 2 videos, you'll know I was having a lot of trouble sleeping before I went to the hospital, and then I was doing good in the hospital. My sleep's been totally fine the whole year. So anyway, I was feeling not very good. And so we went into the hospital. This is actually a decent story if I can remember the details and tell it succinctly. We went into the hospital. I decided I can't stand this. My throat hurts so bad every time I swallowed that I was like, I can't do this. We have to call the hospital. We have to figure out what to do. And so we called Omaha, couldn't get in touch with anybody at that moment. Or no, I did. I got in touch with someone and they said, okay, well, in order for us to prescribe you or something, we need to know what's wrong. And so I said, well, I can go to Fremont. Or maybe we were going into Fremont that day. Anyway, I'm not sure. But I said, somehow we ended up going to Fremont, to the hospital. And we had to go into the ER. So it's in the same building that I've been going to all year, but it was in a place that I hadn't been ever in the hospital. And so we went there, and we went to the ER, and my people from Omaha that I work with, they had called ahead of time to try to arrange what they wanted them to do. And so I went to the ER, and the ladies there tried to check me in, had no clue who I was, didn't know what was going on, and they sent me to the lab. So I was like, okay. So what we were trying to do was get some labs drawn. And so we went up to the lab area of the hospital, which was closed. It was dark everywhere. This was on like a Saturday, I think. Yeah, this is a Saturday. It's always so annoying because stuff like this always happens on the weekend when everybody's at home. Nothing ever happens on a Monday or a Tuesday. It always happens on a Friday or a Saturday. And so my mom and I waited for like 2 hours, and I ran to this guy that I always knew on the other side of the hospital, and he was trying to help me, and he was very nice that he just tried to help, but there was only so much he could do. We didn't see anybody. Nobody came out to talk to us. We had got sent to the wrong place. So I kept calling the people at Omaha, and they were like, this shouldn't be happening. We've called them. We told them you were coming. Go back to the ER. So we waited like 2 hours in the dark in this area for these people to come meet us. Never happened. We went back down to the ER and talked to him. And before we could even talk to the ladies to like check us in, a lady came out and was like, we've been waiting for you guys for hours. And it was like, oh, so silly. And at that point, I just felt like I was dying. I was like, let's just go to Omaha. I can't swallow ever again. It hurts so bad. And so they took me to a room in the emergency room at Fremont, and they put me on a bed and hooked me up right away to antibiotics. And they gave me some medication. I can't remember what it was. I think it was just a generic thing, like high dose Tylenol or something like that. And at that point, my niece and my nephew and my sister came in, and they saw me in the hospital, which is the only time they've been into the hospital to seen me. Although my nephew went with me last year at one point when he was visiting us. They came in and saw me just in the emergency room, and then they left, and they were going to take me in an ambulance all the way to Omaha so that I could get admitted to the hospital there and spend time there. And at that point, I was already starting to feel better because the antibiotics or whatever they had given me was making me feel a little bit better. And I told them, no, I'm not taking an ambulance. Can we just drive ourselves? And they were like, sure, if you just sign the waiver. I was like, oh my goodness, thank goodness. So the people in the ER were really nice to me there. And I've only been in an ER for my own, well, I guess when I was little, when we had our bad car accident. But when I first found out I had cancer and had that 4.5 hour bloody nose, we went to the ER at Wahoo. That was a bit of a different experience. In Fremont, they treated us really well. They worked with Omaha. It was really nice. Then we got in the car, drove to Omaha, and then they admitted us to the hospital. We stayed there for 3 days. They did the same thing. They had to check my cultures for infection. Turns out I didn't have an infection. And I don't even remember exactly what it was, but I think I had some kind of a cold or flu, and because of the medicine I was taking, because of the cancer, because of the chemo and all the drugs I'd been on at that point, it affected me in a different way, and something had happened with my nose. Oh, that's right. That's the other thing too. I had been getting these it wasn't sores in my nose, but it was like this really hard crust all in my nose, and it was really hard and it hurt, and something happened in my nose, like leaking the back of my throat. It's kind of gross, I know. I guess kind of like now as I'm coughing, which is very annoying, I understand. But we ended up having to stay in the hospital. They gave me some medicine. I basically felt fine. I learned about gargling with saline, which is something I've been told throughout the year but never really done. And I'm a big fan of Listerine. And so I was given nasal sprays, which I think is the thing that inevitably ended up helping me the most. But we got some nasal spray and a few different things, and it really helped me, and I was feeling really good after about a day or so in the hospital. But you have to wait that 2 days for the culture's results to come back and find out I didn't have any infection. And then got to go home. And then we were admitted one other time after that. Basically, throughout the whole year, I had to stay overnight in the hospital 7 times, I believe. 3 times for the Blindo, once the initial time, and then 3 times in between there. So I'm forgetting one of the times, and I don't even remember what it was for. Maybe it was for a medication. I don't remember. Throughout the year, and I talked about this in my other videos, so I won't go into it, but I believe the total number was 27 lumbar punctures and 9 bone marrow biopsies, maybe 10. now because we just did 2 more 2 weeks ago. So it was a crazy year. Then once we got the Blindo hooked up, the process of starting the transplant, everything after the October appointment, we were told I had to get the transplant. We got the Blindo hooked up. That was interesting because during that first cycle, we had Thanksgiving. And while we were having Thanksgiving, I got a cough. And there were these weird coughs all year last year. It was strange. Maybe it was just that I was in hospitals more, so I kind of saw what people had in terms of just general sicknesses like coughs, colds, flus, things like that. But there seemed to be some strange illnesses happening that weren't COVID, because people get tested for COVID in hospitals all the time. But for example, in Fremont, there was one of the nurses that was one of my favorite nurses in Fremont. Am I still going? Yep, check. She got this really bad cold, and then she had it for a week, and her voice completely went away. For 3 full weeks, she could not speak. It was very crazy. She came into work. I saw her one of the days, and she just couldn't speak. She would just talk like this. It was all she could do was this, and it was really crazy. And so that's just an example of some of the crazy, like, and I'm sure wherever you're at, there are some strange things going on last year too. But somehow around Thanksgiving, oh man, that's a whole nother thing. Right around the same time that we found out I needed the bone marrow transplant, my father was diagnosed with prostate cancer, believe it or not. And so he had been scheduled to go in and have his shoulder replaced in November. But what ended up happening was the day before Thanksgiving, or the day, I'm not sure where around Thanksgiving, but the day before, I think it was the day before Thanksgiving, he went in and had his prostate removed and prostate cancer removed. So all Thanksgiving he was there the day after having that happen. That's right. Oh. Around that same time, I got this weird cold, and it just gave me this weird, terrible cough. And I had it for like 3 or 4 weeks. And every day since then, I cough a little bit throughout the day. It is very strange. And when I talk to people about it, I've been tested for COVID. I've been tested for so many things. There's nothing wrong with me. I just caught some weird thing, and it causes me to cough. It gets this tickle in my throat, as I've been coughing in this video. And I think I'm coughing a little bit more during this video because I'm the only person talking. Generally, when I film videos here on the channel, I'm with other people and I don't do as much talking, or I'm doing some listening. So I think that's why I'm coughing a little bit more maybe now. But so that was a crazy thing, to be so sick, but have nobody really mind. It didn't affect the Blindo. And then I was kind of getting over it by the time, Christmas came around and we got the Blindo off. And then for those 2 glorious weeks that I didn't have the Blindo, it was great. Then you get hooked back up again, and you get so used to having this bag with you that it's just like, even now, after being unhooked for 2.5 weeks, I'm in certain situations like this. When I stand up, I reach down for the bag. Or if I'm driving in a car, before I get out, I feel weird that there's nothing for me to take with me. It's very strange how that happens, but it does. So speaking of the Blindo, 2 weeks ago, before I got the Blindo unhooked, I believe it was the day before or something, I filmed a video right here talking about the Blindo, the process, showing how I changed the medication, talking about the batteries, all that stuff. So now I feel is a good point to insert that video into this video. So let's do that right here. Okay, everybody, here is a short video of me changing my Blindo. Today is March 8th, 2025. It is 20 days until I go into the hospital, and I have 2 weeks free before I go into the hospital without the Blindo. So I actually get it off in 2 days on the 10th of March. And I just wanted to film a video of myself changing it. I've actually filmed myself changing it several times when I've been recording reactions, and it has beeped and gone off. But it's not a crazy process. It's not difficult at all. But I just think, it'd be fun to do this while I've still got it and actually talk through the process. Though, like I said, it's not a big deal. So I'm going to make myself a little bit more room here. Move the mic over. Sorry for everybody about that. So I've got my bag of medicine that we had to take out about an hour or so ago. You're supposed to take it out an hour or so before you hook it up. However, there have been times that I forgot and just hooked it up cold. It stays refrigerated, by the way. This is a refrigerated bag of medication. I don't know how much this costs. This bag of medication here is probably several thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars. So there we go. Put that off to the side. But it is kept refrigerated, and it is supposed to be taken out about an hour before you change it. The only other thing I'm going to need is one of these alcohol wipes, which, if you're familiar with hospitals at all, the nurses use about 1,000 times a day. So here is my bag that has the machine in it, and then the medication also goes in here. I have had this medication 3 times, and each time it is 4 weeks on, 2 weeks off. And so while it's on, I have it hooked up to my PICC line, and it is always hooked up. Now, for the purposes of this video, I guess I'll explain. My PICC line here, I've had it for over a year now and a half, or not a year and a half, since January of last year. So I got it on January 10th, the day I was admitted to the hospital, or the next day. Now, because this time the PICC dressing changed every week, I have this little extra nub on here, which is very annoying. So I actually have my cable running behind my arm here. I have an extension on here, and so basically I just keep the extension on, hook it up, and usually it runs from the front of my arm down my shirt here, but because I have this extra piece that was left on when I got my PICC dressing changed earlier this week, and I changed the extension every week as well, I don't do that. The nurses do that at the hospital, whether I'm going to Fremont or to Omaha, and it's been Fremont this whole time, this round of Blindo. So yeah, normally this cable here, which is where the medication is going through, would come up and then down, but now it's going behind and down because it's easier to do that with that on there. So this is pretty simple. I'm just gonna unzip this bag here, and then I'll open this, and inside it's like this. I don't know if you can see. There we go. You can see a little better there. I'm just going to do this the way I normally would, but I always have a little bit of the cable stuck inside there. This is an air thing. They call it air. What you call it, you'll see. But everything's Velcroed in here nicely so that it stays nice and snug. Here's the actual machine itself. It is on. Right now it says infusion complete. It is a Curlin Medical C1000 SMS. 6000 CMS. So I'm going to hit the pause button, and then I'm going to hit off here. All right, it's hard to tell. So that shut it off. And now we'll go through the process of changing this bag out. So there's a little Velcro in there. And then here's the bag that is supposed to be mostly empty, but you can see there's a little bit left in there. There always is. If you're in the hospital, they try to give you every little bit of medication. They try to have it go through, but with machines like this, it's set to only go for 24 hours and use a certain amount of the medication. So there's always just a little bit left in there. It's not a big deal. Now, there's different orders that I could do things here, but I'm just going to go ahead and do it the way I normally would. I am going to open this, take this out. Now this is just the bag, and it is attached to my arm. So I'll go under here, and I will have to unscrew it like that. And here is the full entire old thing, which now gets thrown away. Okay, so now we have the replacement one. So I always take it and put it with the cable part to the outside when I'm putting it in here. It doesn't have to be that way, but that's the way I do it. And then I always take this little ring down here, this little hole, and I loop through it this Velcro. This is the point of this. I was given this bag. The bag was new. The Velcro in here is pretty cheap, and it's already starting to kind of come out, but that's just kind of how it works. I've used it now since October. Like I've said, I've had it for three full cycles. So that would be, what, 12 weeks? 12 weeks I've been using it. So then we tear this off. That can be thrown away eventually. And then we have the cable here. Now, I always try to untangle it a little bit and then stretch it out a little. I don't want it to be completely straight or anything like that, but it works a little better. So now we hook it up into the machine. Going around the outside, there's a little loop in here, right there. So you go underneath like that, and then the blue part goes right into a little square a little hole that fits right into it there, and then this piece goes right down inside there. It's really the only way that can fit in there where it would work nicely and snug. Make sure the hose here is right in the middle, and then you push it closed, close it. There you go. It is hooked up. So it's not on yet though. Now what we want to do is, I'll leave the end down there. Now I'm going to take and pull this out for right now and just have this out for the sake of the video. So this is the end of my extension that I have here. And what we need to do is clean this. And again, if you've been at a hospital doing blood work or anything like that, these are used all the time, constantly, these alcohol wipes. They're used for everything, to clean everything, to sterilize everything. So you're supposed to do this for a minimum of 7 seconds. I've already done it for more than that as I've been talking. Make sure you get the tip of it as well. And I'm literally just putting it in there like this and cleaning it. That's the way to do it, I guess. Now I'll kind of let it dry. I'm not going to spit on it or anything like that. Then this is the lid you have on the end of this. The tip here, just pull that off. And then tighten this. There we go. Now, important thing that I've forgotten multiple times. This right here is right now kinking the hose. So you gotta remove that. Just slide it up so that it's on the big part, and then it'll slide down the hose and be probably annoying to you. So now we have this whole thing hooked up. It goes from here into the machine, from the machine, and is hooked up to me. Now we have to turn the machine on. It's going to beep 3 times. Internal power is over half full, so I will have to probably change that maybe tomorrow night. Program, we hit yes. Repeat RX. I know you can't really see this. Yes. Then it'll go through its settings. Sorry, you can't see this. No. Whatever. Then run to start. Using inline filter. Yes. Okay, and it's going. Once it starts flashing green, that means it's going. Now I go through the process of putting it back inside of the bag. And I do it the same way every time. Now when I was given these, not given, but when I was given these and we left the hospital the first time with the Blindo, I've kept them with me since then. So I haven't had to turn them back in between for those 2 weeks. I've just kept them because they've been anticipating that they were going to put me back on again. So I have 2 of these machines that were given to me. One is a backup. You can alternate them if you want, or you can just use one like I have. When I first got Blindo and first hooked it up, I was a little bit worried, so I would prep the one before I unhooked the other one. Now I'll go through this process, whatever, just doesn't matter too much. It's super easy, and it's old hat at this point for me. So yeah, but when we go in on Monday, maybe not Monday, sometime next week, we'll have to take the 2 machines in. There, you could hear it working while I was talking. I'll have to take the two machines in, this one and then the backup one, and those have to be turned back in. The bags and then everything else that they've given me over the time, the extra extensions, by many packs of these, alcohol wipes, other things, the batteries to go in the machine, which has to be replaced every 48 hours. There it went again. All that stuff I get to keep. You don't turn any of that stuff in, just the two machines. This bag I keep. I'll probably throw it away once my cancer is hopefully gone. So then I zip it back up, and it's zipped up in such a way that there's a little stop right here. So this zipper cannot zip through it. But what I try to do always is take this part and I kind of loop it in there like this. Then I make a loop, put the hose in there, make a loop, put the hose in there, make a loop, put the hose in there, and then I zip this up. And then they have this window that you can use to look in there and see, is it still flashing green? Yep, it's still working. And it will beep at you if it does something wrong. And I have it like this. This is the length that I've had it set now for quite a while. And I like this length because it just fits on my shoulder like this. And then when I go anywhere out in the world, shopping, and to the hospital, anywhere, I just always have this with me. I walk around like this and I carry it like this constantly, just like this. I suppose just like a woman's purse is what it kind of looks like. However, sometimes if I have to carry something, if I'm doing work, I just do this, like this, and then I put it on my back, and it's not super comfortable, but it allows me to carry things with both of my arms, use both of my hands. It does get very frustrating. As someone that hasn't spent their whole life carrying a purse around, it gets very frustrating. And so that's pretty much it. Now, because I took this out, and it's outside of my shirt right now. Actually, because I did that, I'll have to run this bag through my shirt sleeve before I go to bed, which won't be a big deal. But it is kind of annoying. But I'll maybe just do that now when I'm done recording here. But normally, you would have it go through your shirt, right? Like, so it would be coming... when I unhooked it, it was going behind my arm like this, back here. And then down into my shirt because of this extra piece on there, this bigger piece. Normally, though, every other time I've had it hooked up, I have it so that it's going up my arm like this, just like this, and then it kind of gets bent in and goes down like this. And then when I change it, I lift my shirt up, and I have a bit dangling down here, this extension, and I hook it up to that underneath my shirt so that it's always there. That allows you to take your shirt on and off without having to do anything, any additional steps, or having to slide it through anything. Because right now it's going to be, it's not inside my shirt. So I will probably change that. But if I never get it again, and the whole process of the transplant goes well, then I will hopefully never need this again. And I really, really hope that's the case, because it is super annoying. But if I do need it again, I'll know how to use it and I'll be comfortable with it. And if I ever have to have any other sort of medication hooked up to me, that I have to deal with myself changing it, I will be comfortable, probably be comfortable doing that because I've had this experience. So there you go. There's the Blindo. Thank you very much. Okay, so there you can tell, I don't remember exactly what I said, so hopefully that was clear and enough of that was enough of what it needed to be. So to finish this video off, I'm going to talk about the process of the transplant. We were told all of this on the, well, not all of this exactly, but we were told that I needed the transplant on that day at the end of October. So what's going to happen? It is now March 26th. In 2 days from now, and it's 10:30 p.m. Which, by the way, this has nothing to do with that, but the reason I have my arm out like this is because a couple days ago I got a bad sore here under my arm, and it's going to cause me... only reason I'm mentioning it is because I'm acting a little weird with my arm out, but also I can see a situation where after this whole transplant thing is done, I look back and go, oh man, who knew that sore underneath my armpit would cause such a terrible time? Hopefully that's not the case, and it can heal itself over the next couple days. But my platelets are low. They've been low all dang year. So that's the only reason I'm mentioning it. But that's why I'm sitting like this. Just ignore me. But anyway, the process of the transplant. In 2 days, I'm going to go to the hospital on March 28th, 2025. I'm going to go to the hospital and get admitted into the 7th floor. I'll be there for a couple days. I think on either the second day or the second day I'm there, I believe they start doing chemo. They do chemo for a couple days. And then on April 1st, I start 3 days of intense radiation therapy. And I just found out what this all entails last week when I went to get tested for it. So I'll try to do this fast, though this is all obviously the stuff I know the most because it just happened. We went in to do the radiation testing, and I was told they were going to take some measurements, and then there was something they call like a trial run or something like that. And so, like a test scan. And so I go in and talk to the doctor, and she is this nice, wonderful lady, Japanese lady, I believe. And she drops the knowledge that my doctor had signed up for me to get extra blasts of radiation to my spleen because my spleen is enlarged. Not terribly. When they look at it, I've had scans and graphs and not scans and what's the thing that they do to pregnant women? Ultrasound of my stomach and everything. Everything is fine. There's nothing wrong with my spleen other than it's too big. And my doctor wants to try to shrink that. And so he told the radiation that he wanted them to focus on my spleen. Well, him not knowing what that entailed, telling them that, created this whole kerfuffle for them. So I believe the plan was, before he made that decision, I was going to get what they call TBR, total body radiation. It's what they do commonly for people who can take it. So one thing I have to say about this whole transplant process, older people can go through it and be totally fine the entire time. But the older you are, the more of a chance the more risks there are, the more of a chance you can have more severe what they call GVH or GVD, graft versus host disease, GVHD, graft versus host disease, which is something that everybody gets partially, whether it's acute or long-term, all that, there's a lot of factors that go into it. But because I'm young, I'm 38 right now. I turned 38 on October 21st last year. Oh man, that's a whole nother story I should tell. Oh shoot. Okay. I'll end with that. That's a good thing. Because I'm young, my doctor decided, give this guy everything. Let's put him through the hardest transplant process possible so that it has the highest rate of chance of success. And so we're like, okay. And so normally with the total body radiation, from what I was told, you go and you sit and they have this machine that can pinpoint exactly where it's shooting you with radiation if they want, or they can widen it and then they just blast you with like a blast of radiation. And then what you do is you sit in a chair sideways or on a block or something sideways like this, and it blasts you from a distance and it gets your whole side, your whole body, and then you turn the other way and they blast you the other way. And I think the whole process takes about an hour. So I don't know if they blast you at increments or if they blast you for 30 minutes and then 30 minutes on the other side, like they flip you over like a pancake. I don't know. So I believe I am still doing that. However, because he wants to focus on the spleen, what they're going to do is this whole other process. And this is what I had to go get tested for last Tuesday. Basically, what I had to do was I went in, met these all new people, this new team at Village Point location, and I had to lay down on this sort of like a bean bag, basically. And then what they did was I think they suck the air out of this bean bag. But what they did was they had me like nuzzle myself, lay flat on this bean bag type thing. And then I had to kind of nuzzle myself in, and then they kind of formed it around my body, and they suck the air out of it to create a hard shell. And so then I'm basically laying in this shell. And the point of it is so that I can relax when I'm in it, and it keeps me all together and tight and I don't move. So I had to do that. And then I didn't know this part. I knew I had been warned that they were going to do a mask, but I didn't know what that entailed. I had just been told mask, but don't worry, you can breathe through the mask. That's what I was told. So I was laying there like this, and I was just one other lady in the room with me, this nurse. Or this doctor, I don't know what she was exactly, but she was really wonderful and very kind and very nice. And she came over and was just like, okay, are you ready? And I was like, yeah, sure. And so imagine the camera is my eyes. She came around above me and she took this like mesh looking type thing and she stretched it out and put it right over my face like that. And it went over my face, down under my chin, above my head. And I heard her, she attached it to the table. And it was pulling down so hard on my face. It bent my nose. It was pushing my lips into my teeth. And she had my head tilted up a little bit. And it was just totally choking me, like completely choking me. And my whole life, I've not been very good with people touching my neck. My neck is very ticklish. And I think tickling someone is like the worst thing you can do to them. I think it's torture. And so no one was tickling me, but it was definitely choking me. And she was like, oh, that's right. I'm sorry. That's probably pretty tight on your neck. So she bolted it down or clipped it down to the table and I could not move. And so she reached her hands around like this and she, like if the paper was like this, choking me, she reached around with her hands and pulled it like this, and she was pulling it to stretch it. And so what was happening was she had taken this thing that was like a sheet of paper basically that was kind of mesh, and you have to think of it was almost like the design of this microphone. You can't see, you can kind of see the design of this microphone. I don't want to mess with it too much, but it like a mesh pattern, right? But pretty thick. You could see through it. You could breathe. Because my nose was pushing up, you could talk. And what they do is that she must have opened it or took it out of a package, stretched it out, and then stretched it all over my whole face and bolted it down. And then she stretched this part. And so then what you do is you have to sit there and you wait for like 5 to 10 minutes while it hardens. And it doesn't get super hard, but it is hard. It's really hard to explain, but they told me I can keep the mask when I'm done with it, so I'm definitely going to keep it. But as long as they allow me to, which I really hope they do. But basically she made this mask of me, of my face and my head, and of my body, also this cast type thing. And after they got done and the mask hardened, they put me through this tube that was kind of like a scanning machine. Like if you've ever gotten a CT scan, PET scan, that type of thing. A little bit more closed. It was open on the sides, but it was it was open on the sides, but closed this way and pretty close to my face too. But that kind of stuff doesn't bother me, at least hasn't so far. And so they put me into this machine and they moved me back and forth. And each time it was a little rough and not bad, but still kind of jostling. And, I was there for probably I would say an hour and a half, not being able to move at all. And they came in and made adjustments a little bit. I had no shirt on the whole time, and she came in and put marks on me. I have these marks on my body, one here, I think 2 down here, 2 on the sides, and 2 up here, or 1 here, 2 down here, whatever, it doesn't matter. So I was basically stuck, bolted to a table for an hour and a half. And then she let me out. She unbolted my head. And you can breathe and everything the whole time, but I can't imagine most people would be able to do that. And then she said, I am so sorry, but you are quite large, and we couldn't get the measurements we needed with you that way. We have to flip you around. And I'm like, what? So I thought she meant I had to flip around this way and lay on my stomach and my face. But what she meant was they needed to turn me around this way, so my feet would go into the machine first instead of my head. But I guess the way that the machine was setting up to work, I needed to go that way instead. And so she had to do another hour or so, maybe 45 minutes worth of testing with me that way. So I think total I spent over 2 hours completely immobile, laying there the entire time, my face being pressed so hard. My lips specifically were pushing down against my teeth, and it was uncomfortable, and it was a really harrowing experience. And so what I'm going to have to do on April 1st, the 3 days of radiation, twice a day for 3 days in a row, I have to go do that. So I don't know if that means like in the morning, I'll do the total body radiation one where I just sit. And the reason they're doing that is so they're going to have a machine that basically they mapped out my body, and then they're going to basically be able to blast radiation at just my bones because they want to get the marrow out of my bones, or all the white blood cells and platelets and everything, the bone marrow out of my bones. So they're going to just blast my body, but specifically pinpoint my bones and not my head. And you can't move at all, because if you move even an inch, then they could be blasting like one of your ribs, and you move an inch and then they blast your heart with radiation. And I told them, I said, I might cough. They said, that's all right. We deal with coughing all the time. If you start coughing, we'll turn the machine off. So, this is going to be a whole thing. So that's probably the part of all this that I'm looking forward to the least, that I'm probably the most worried about. So that happens for 3 days. And then on April 4th is what they're calling my day 0. From that point on, every day gets counted forward. So the first day I go in, it's like day -5, day -5, then day -4, then day -5, -3, 2, 1, then day 0. Day 0 is the day of the transplant. The transplant itself is very anticlimactic. I literally just have to sit for like a half hour and get an infusion of stem cells. I was told by my doctor when we went and saw him just yesterday that my donor was great. He was a really hefty, big dude. And he said they try to find people to donate that are bigger than the people who are receiving them, because if you have a person like me who's 280 pounds and the recipient is this tiny 90-pound dude, you have to collect so many more cells from that person to put in me to be able to fill everything, basically. And so they managed to find a really hefty, big guy, and they got a really good count from him. And so I cannot personally know who the person was for 3 years after this process. After the 3-year process is over, if I want to, I can fill out paperwork on my own to say I would like to know who my donor is. And he, on his end, has to fill out the same paperwork sometime within those 3 years. And if we both do that independently of each other, then they will let us know. And I suppose they do that in case your person doesn't make it. And then you never find that out, which I suppose is actually a pretty good thing. So I don't know. I guess when I make it through all of this and then the whole process is done, I probably would fill out the paperwork just to let the person know that it did work. Because I think that it would be nice to know that. If it were me donating, I would want to know that it worked. I definitely would not want to know that it didn't work. So interesting to think about that. But the process for them isn't that hard. I watched a video on it. They just basically have to sit. They have to get shots, I think, 3 days in a row beforehand for 3 days. Not very bad, though. And it basically makes their body make extra stem cells in their body. And then what they do is they take blood from one arm and they run it through this really crazy machine that spins the blood real fast and basically pulls the stem cells from the blood. And then it runs through this tube and they put the blood without the stem cells back into their body and to the other arm. And the whole process can take a half hour to like 2 or 3 hours. And if they collect enough that first day, you don't ever have to come back in again. But if you maybe have to do it again, you can come back in a couple days later or the next day and they'll get more. But it's not a very invasive process compared to other transplants. And the person at most feels like they have to get some shots. So I know a lot of people don't like that, but the person at most feels maybe some flu-like symptoms or something like that. So then at that point, I get the stem cells, and from that point on, we worry about graft versus host disease and my body slowly coming up. Basically what the process is they knock all the immunity out of my body, all the immunity cells out the cells in my body that try to fix things, because they're the cells that are creating the cancer. And then they replace it with someone else's, and then those are the cells that hopefully reproduce in my body, and then they are able to do the immunity stuff correctly so that it fights the cancer instead of creating more cancer. And so basically hope the T cells or whatever like knock the cancer out for good. And that's the hope, and that's what should happen. And so that's basically the process. So that day 0, I get those, and then every day after that is recovery. And I have to spend 30 days or so in the hospital. So I'll actually be in the hospital on the 7th floor for 30 days. After that, if I lived in Omaha within 30 minutes of the hospital, I would get released to go home for 70 days. It's a 100-day process. But because we live far enough away, we live just far enough away to not be able to go back home, I have to move to Omaha, to a hotel or someplace in Omaha. I'm not going to get into all that. I'll explain all that based on where we end up getting put in a future video, for around 70 days. So then at that point, once we're released from the hospital, we'll go to a hotel, hopefully, that's my hope, one very close to the hospital, possibly maybe if we're very lucky, close enough that we can walk to the hospital. That would be my ultimate goal. But I'll have to go back to the hospital at least twice a week. If there's something wrong or I need more, maybe more than twice a week, but it'll be twice a week for those 70 days. And then after those 70 days, I will get to go home. At that point, at the 100-day mark or thereabouts, if I'm doing really good, it can be a little earlier. If I'm not doing that great, I might have to extend that period a little bit. Then I get to come home, and then from that point on, it's just keeping up with medications, getting vaccinated over time, because I'll need all new vaccinations for things. It's just a matter of like a year or so worth of recovery. And then after, usually they say about 2 years, you're pretty much the way you are at that point is how you're going to probably be the rest of your life. So if you have things that are lingering and bothering you, those things might bother you. That's long-term GVHD. But hopefully because I'm so young and all this stuff, I hopefully don't have any long-term effects at all. And very little, if any, short-term effects, we're hoping. As long as I do everything that I'm supposed to do and take the medications I'm supposed to take and do all the precautions and everything we're supposed to do, and everything works the way it's supposed to, it hopefully won't be that bad of a process, won't be much recovery needed. I'll just be very fatigued and tired, and I might get some sores and things in my mouth, things like that. But at that point then, after like the 2-year period, they basically say you're good to go, and they watch you and then you have to come back, I think, every year or so until the 5-year period, which then they basically let you go. And because of the radiation, there's a possibility, I think she said 20% chance that I could develop some other type of cancer 6 years later or so, within 6 years. So it's possible I might get some other type of cancer, but that's even lessened now that we're doing this more pinpoint type thing as well. So that's the whole transplant process. We've been I could do literally a whole 2-hour video on just the process of me mentally and actually physically trying to get ready to go into the hospital. But I think I'm going to save that for another video because this is already running quite long. But I want to end this video on a fun, nice thing that happened. So I talked in previous videos, and I will say it again here. I really enjoyed going to the Bellevue location, the Bellevue Hospital, and the nurses there are absolutely wonderful. And I mean, it's hard to call someone a friend when you don't see them that much, but there are some people there that are very special to me. And based on the way that they acted, I think my mother and I are special to them as well. Now, maybe they're just good at acting and they're good nurses and they're good at their job. But I really enjoyed going to that hospital a lot. And it's a smaller hospital, so you see the same people more. And even more, most recently when I went there after a long period of not going there very much between October and just the last month or so, we didn't start going back there again until this last month when we were starting to get ready and do a bunch of tests that have to be done before the transplant. So I went there for I went there for 2 lumbar punctures, 2 bone marrow biopsies, some different things. But last year we went there a lot throughout the year. And my case manager, Melanie, she, my first one, she started to schedule me going there because it was a little bit further distance for us to drive there, but it took about the same amount of time, about an hour and a half to get there, even though I think it's like 7 or 8 miles further away for where we live. But it took us about the same amount of time to get there. It was smaller, and she realized she could schedule us there a lot easier. And so I started going there right away, and I talked about them in previous videos and some of the amazing nurses there. Well, that kept up throughout the whole year, and I really enjoyed every time I got to go there. And it was a big bummer when we would go there a couple times and then have things canceled, so we'd go all the way there and have to come all the way back. But it was really nice when we got to go there, and I got to know a lot of the nurses a lot. I think almost every nurse that worked there I got to know a little bit, and a few of them I got to become a little closer with, and I really looked forward to the days when I would go there and I would have them. And the head nurse there is a wonderful lady named Anna, and she would kind of make it a point to come see us when we were there for something that wasn't just a quick little thing. And even on some of those times, she would make it a point to come talk to us. But she was really wonderful, and she did a couple of really great things for us throughout the year that I'm really grateful for. But when I went there on October 22nd, the day after my birthday, we were walking into the hospital, and we had had a difficult drive there, and it was probably in the morning, and we were joking around about, whatever. And I had become really comfortable with all of the nurses there, and the nurse that we had that day, I was joking around with her. She said, every nurse always asks you, is there anything I can get you before she leaves the room? And I think it must be just part of the job, obviously. And we were always like, no, we're always fine. Never ask for anything. And so we were walking to the room on this day, October 22nd. And she said, can I get you anything, when we get there? And I said, yeah, you can get me a Casey's pizza. I was just joking because we had driven by Casey's right when we went there. And I was like, because also another thing I should say, and I don't know if I mentioned this in a previous video, but some of the labs that we would draw throughout the year, they would be checking my lipid panel, which I believe cholesterol is included in there. And so when you get that checked, you're not allowed to eat for 6 hours before you get that checked. So a lot of those days when we would do labs, basically on Mondays and Thursdays, I just wouldn't eat anything until after I had my blood checked. And so sometimes we would get the blood labs done at 12 or 1. So I would wake up in the morning, not eat anything for breakfast, go all the way through, not have anything for lunch until the labs were drawn. And so we talked about food with a lot of the nurses all the time, and I talked about that in previous videos. But this particular day, I was joking around about that. And so the nurse came in and she took my blood, and we were there for a lumbar puncture, I believe, or something. I can't remember exactly. And in what I can only say is literally the best moment I had the entire year. Maybe not one of the top moments for sure. I got to spend a lot of time with my nephew and niece last year, and that's really great too. Anytime I'm with them is great. And I had a lot of great moments in the hospital even too, but this particular time, we were just sitting, actually, the nurse came and we did my blood, and that particular day, my niece had left some Lunchables at our house that my sister had bought for when she was visiting. And so my mom and I each took a Lunchable with us. And so we got there, and she took the blood, and I don't remember what time it was. And I opened my Lunchable, and I took the little piece of ham and stuck it on the cracker with the cheese, and I took my first bite, and the door opened, and all of the nurses that I had throughout the year walked in singing me happy birthday, and they gave me a Casey's pizza. And it was I can't even explain it, but it was a really special, awesome thing that they did. And they even knew, I had said, jokingly, get me a Casey's breakfast pizza. And the nurse like slyly asked, like, what do you like? Oh, the sausage or I was like, oh, the bacon for sure, But again, we talked about food all the time to all the nurses. And so they went out and bought me my favorite pizza in the world, which, by the way, if you don't live in the Midwest and you're not around Casey's gas stations, Casey's pizza is phenomenal. And Casey's breakfast bacon pizza is the greatest pizza on planet Earth. But only if it's been sitting in their little rotisserie spinning thing for like at least 2 hours. Oh, that's so great. But a fresh one's great too. And I honestly don't even know how I made it through the entire song. But my mom and I just sat there in disbelief as like these like probably 9 or 10 women that we've been seeing throughout the year. And they didn't know this, but that was the last time I think I was there before getting the news that I had the transplant, and not seeing them again for like several months until just more recently. And that was a really great moment. I mean, something like that may sound small, but that meant so much to me. And that was really great. And I have pictures. I can insert them into the video here if I can find them. But I have pictures of me with the pizza after the fact, but I wish I would have thought to take a picture with all of them there. And I wish that I would have, or my mom would have grabbed a camera and taken a picture of them singing to me. But we didn't think of it like that. And again, that's not what the world is about. You got to live in the moment too, not just take pictures of stuff. But since that time, when I go into the hospital and I'm with a nurse that I've had multiple times or that I feel close to, I ask her to take a picture with me. And so I'm slowly getting pictures of some of the people that have been important to me. But nothing will be as special as that moment where they all came in and I knew every one of them. And that was really special. So I know I said that was going to be the last thing, but I did bring a couple things down here, and I want to just mention we've been trying to get prepped for the hospital, going in, being there. And one of the things that I decided I wanted to do is take my PlayStation with me, play Assassin's Creed. I've had some trouble with that. Again, this can be for kind of a future video. The snowstorm that happened, being out of power for 6 days. Remind me to tell you about it at another time. But I did bring with me down here, I've been doing tons of research, and it's really funny to think about now. But I have this entire sack here full of coloring books. I want to try to get into adult coloring a little bit, color pencil stuff. I don't know if you need to refer to it as adult coloring. I don't know, but I've got all these books that I bought at the dollar store. One book that I bought at Goodwill. A couple books that I bought at Goodwill. I got these colored pencils that my aunt actually bought me last year when I was in the hospital with the Harry Potter coloring book. I got the skin tones, the colors of the earth. I got these old colored pencils that we got when I was in high school, these confetti ones. Kind of interesting. And then I did tons of research. I'll talk about it again in a future video. I bought these colored pencils, 72 colored pencil set. I could talk for hours about this in the process of getting this, but I'm not going to. So I just want to mention it in this video. And then in the future, if I talk about stuff like this after the transplant process has begun or after it's already over, I can maybe show some of the stuff that I colored if it's something I get into, but I wanted to mention that. Now, I also wanted to mention, hold on, let me tilt this to the side here a little, rotate this. Am I still connected? Yes. Okay. I got a package in the mail just yesterday that came like this. It has the Amazon logo on it. And so I opened it up, and inside was this that says Keep your gift a surprise. Unwrap your present before opening this envelope. Then there was this inside. And then there was this as well. Ow. This box as well. Which is a sweet box, by the way. And so I already opened this, but I wanted to open it in the video and talk about it. So, same kind of thing here. This is I think it's a notebook, like a journal type thing. It's a Harry Potter journal. It's very cool. It has a nice, soft, like leather-bound case. And I haven't opened it yet. And it comes with a sweet pen. That's Harry Potter's broom. So that's very cool, and something that I can use to keep like a journal sort of going. I'm not sure if I will use it for that or not, but I will find a use for it, I promise. Neat little bag that it comes with. And then this package, which says specialty for you, or specially for you, Mayo Sivo, it says. And I will show you guys what is in here. This is very thoughtful and really cool. So you open it. Warm hugs, fighter, warrior, hero, confidence, energy, perseverance, empathy. Ooh, that's one I have trouble with. I don't care about what other people think. Blessing, love, faith, sweet dreams, hope, trust, confidence, all that kind of stuff. Very cool. Maybe not necessarily my type of thing. I would like something that's like gothic-y with like death and blood and sweet stuff like that. But it's still very cool. If you look in it, there's kind of a grab bag of cool stuff. There is a like a stress ball. I'll make sure you can hear me. Stress ball, very cool. Like it, blue. There are some never give up socks, which are really nice. I'm going to take all this to the hospital with me, by the way. There is a bar of handmade bath soap, bamboo charcoal. There is a mask to put on for sleeping. I know a lot of people have trouble sleeping in the hospital if there's light and stuff. Light doesn't seem to bother me. However, I've never tried sleeping with one of these. It looks like a nice wide band because I have such an enormous head. This actually might fit me, and it might actually be incredibly useful. So that's exciting to have. Then there's also this little box, which has, and this is one of my favorite things. I'll probably use this forever, or for a long time. It is a keychain that says, "Fate whispers to the warrior, you can't withstand the storm. The warrior whispers back, I am the storm." I love it. That's so cheesy, and I love it. I'm going to keep that in the box for now. There is this really cool mug that says, be a warrior, not a worrier. And I take that to heart. I try not to worry about anything. And anybody that knows me, especially throughout this process, they know that. And then, I have not taken this out yet, and I was going to do it in the video, but I've already talked for long enough. There's this really sweet blanket that's in this nice airtight package in here. So I will have this blanket with me in the hospital. I'll have all this stuff with me, and I will use this blanket. And so, that's what's in this package. It's very nice. It's awesome. And this was sent to me I like the box almost more than anything. It's a sweet box. Yeah, look at that box. It's cool. It was sent to me. Let's see. basically it says, "A gift for you. Get better soon, Patrick. Love all of us from Alohomora." And then it says, "From Tracy Dunstan." Tracy, or maybe I should blur out her last name there. From Tracy, the producer of the Alohomora podcast that I am on. And then there's receipts and stuff in here, I suppose, if someone's ridiculous and they want to send it back, which I obviously would not do. But very cool. Really awesome. Very thoughtful. And not the only thing that they have given me, notwithstanding what they actually gave me last year when we first found out. But having the podcast to work on throughout the year is something, and I've talked about this too. It was really nice to have the podcast to work on throughout the year because it always gave me something to do every year, helped me feel normal, helped me escape from reality for a little bit, which is why people listen to podcasts and watch things, maybe even things like this. But so I wanted to share that. I have a lot of other stuff to say too, but I respect your time at least a little bit, so I'm going to end the video here. So for now, in 2 days, I'll be going to the hospital, and here on the channel, I don't know when this video is going to come out. I don't know if I can possibly get it edited and done and out before I go in. But I will be recording and posting lots of stuff to my YouTube channel and to Discord, which I'll leave a link to that in the description below. My Discord has really helped me out a lot this year as well, the people on there. I will be posting a lot of stuff about all this while I'm in the hospital. It's my plan to post. I want to try to post a short every day, just kind of giving an update, a little journal for myself and anybody that's watching, and also to record other little videos that I can kind of put together a bigger video after I get out about the whole process. So, yeah. I go in 2 days. Like I said, it's March 26th right now. If you're thinking about me, happen to think about me on April 1st when I'm getting my radiation, think about me then. Think about me on April 4th because that is my day 0. And when I was going through all my training for this and stuff, they were saying there are a lot of people who think of it like that is your new birthday. And all the nurses and she said, one of the ladies I was talking to doing the education part of this was like, there might be people who say, oh, come in and say, oh, happy birthday. It's your new birthday. It's not the way I look at it. But I try not to be too over fantastical about this stuff. And I want to just try to treat it, I don't want to treat it like something big. I just want to treat it like something small, like another thing. You just got to kind of go through and push through. So that's the way I'm kind of approaching it. But we'll see how I feel on the other side of everything. So until I get to a point where I feel like it's time to post another one of these, stay tuned to the channel. There'll be lots of stuff in the cancer playlist coming up and everything. And I'll talk to you all then. Until next time, I guess.
Ready?
Yep.
Woo!
What? Why can't I ever go in the right place? I'm too fat. Hello everybody, we are here to try out the brand new Prime flavor Glowberry. I'm not sure how new it is, but I bought some. We're actually here in the bathroom because we're going to shut the lights off and see if it glows in the dark.
You want me to do that?
Try it. No, turn it back on. Alright, so let's drink some and see what we think here. Okay, this is oh wait, did you shake it?
No, do you have to?
Yeah, you're supposed to shake Prime. Mine's... That's good enough.
I'm gonna try it. Oh.
Okay, let's go. Oh, that is a different flavor. Mm-hmm. It's a different type of sweet. I like it. I like it. Turn the light off one more time. Let's see if it makes our tongue glow. Turn it on. No. All right. Well, thank you, everybody.